Hello everybody, Saw the Hedgehog, and bringing you yet another live. Interesting, a bus just came down the street, and I have no idea what it was for, but this is for a commission I am doing for a commission. Start that one over. This is for a Utena, revolutionary Girl Utena, which is, let me show you real quick, full screen of this right here. It's going to be a tiara for this cosplay or cosplayer that she's going to be doing this for. And on top of that, the tiara itself, if I must show, let's see, tiara. I'm trying something new, everybody, about the whole live stream cosplay, how to do make thing tutorial kind of stuff, and I'm just making sure no pornographic kind of things come up. But the whole tiara thing is something somewhat like this right here, which is a 5-prong type of tiara itself. As you can see on this cosplayer, I do not own rights over this picture. If you want to know where it is, it's right there in the bottom left corner of this picture. But I am doing something similar like this, and we are going to go back to me, and I am going to show you exactly what I'm going to do on how to make it. And with that starting, you will need either construction paper, regular printer paper, line paper. I suggest you actually use printer paper, because if you got the layout on your computer, you can trace this out. Just make sure it's all drawn together and everything. With this though, I'm going to go ahead and get my construction paper ready. And with the size of that crown, you need it at least for the person's head. It needs to go around them. And I advise you to actually make sure that you suggestively get the right, you want to go around the person's head with this. And on top of that, I did say I was going to give some links out to everybody right now. So I'm going to go ahead and post those up on Skype, Facebook, and if you guys want to ask me questions while I'm doing this, remember it's a little bit delay on the actual live stream itself. And on top of that, if you guys want to go ahead and hit me up on Facebook, remember it's always that fun miracle kind of stuff. And let's see. There it is. And paste. There we go. I'm going to go ahead and give you guys that. And then after I post this to Facebook, I'm going to go ahead and start working on stuff on drawing this layout at. And I'm going to go ahead and take my time about drawing it out. And with that said, usually you want to always have a good, tape measure. I'm using an HDX TM 25 foot, which is a 762 meter kind of ruler. And on top of that, I love this type because in truth, it really has a nice, wrap and everything, and it just comes in easy, locks really nice. Stuff I'm using to trace this with, well, Herpaderp, I'm using this. And on top of that, you want to make sure that you have enough room. The material I'll be using is, as you can see right here, I'm going to be using, now I'm actually, insulation foam is for my subject. A lot of people have told me to use craft foam or something. I'm like, guys, craft foam is nice, but sometimes that stuff's too wobbly most of the times. I mean, people say you can just stack it, but with me, I want something that stays right there, doesn't move. As you can know, I make horns for Homestucks, other things. And yeah, I've got these over here, and I've got the sword over there. And the thing that I'll be using to actually cut the insulation foam for tonight is a styro cutter, which is over there. It's for those people that actually can't be outside really late, cold weather, rainy weather, and you can't cut with a wood saw. You want to use a styro cutter, especially for the people that live with their parents. I live with my parents, and literally that's something that causes less mess. But we're going to go ahead, as I will direct your attention down here. I will go ahead and show you exactly how I do my trace outs. If it's something like this crown, as I've seen it on my computer, it's going to be an easy type of layout you can actually do. With that said, I'm pulling up a picture right now on my computer. And I'm actually making sure I have a picture example for myself, and for other resources I'm going to go ahead and do a little of my own creation of this. So with that said, you always want to make sure best way to actually measure your head, you want to take a simple string, twine, thread, any type of thing that you can actually use to get around your head, regardless of what it is. And oh, that's what I was looking for earlier, was masking tape. Thanks. Totally could have used you earlier. I can even go so ghetto on making my own kind of measurements for my stuff. And I mean, this is going to go on a headband. I've actually gone to the extent of using tape itself, and this is an easy way of actually doing it. Usually you want to use this to go around, measure it, and usually this is what you want to go off of sometimes, is to make sure you at least, and yes, this does go around, because this is going to be somewhat like, hey, this is just a close estimate of what you want to use. So this may take about 2 or 3 sheets, just depending on how big you want the thing to go out. So if you want to grab a headband thing or something that resembles what you're going to use, awesome, even better. But with this, I'm going to go ahead and just do a quick trace out. And with this, since it's the same thing going to the other side of it, you really don't actually need to worry too much. Right here, as you guys can see, simple as that. See? Boom. I've got the actual headpiece going on right here. And then this part, you can easily say that if you wanted to do separate triangles when you're doing this, awesome. If we're doing a simple crown like that, I'm going to do what I've seen people do, and that's easy. But we're going to still go ahead and give it a shot about making our own type of triangles. And sometimes if you're one way of drawing something, you want to turn your paper as well when you're making this. And as you can see right here, guys, if you've got a triangle bigger than the other, then you know that you need to go back, fix it up a little bit, and do that fun stuff. You can adjust this to any way that you want it, but you want to try and get it to where you need it and go with that. So with that said, I can actually readjust anything that I need, and I don't really need to worry about how a second thing that I'm going to make comes out, because in truth I can keep just rotating everything. I just tend to make my things kind of canon to what it's going to be. And as you can see, if the thing is too big, then you know that you need to go back and readjust it. As you can see, that seems a little bit big. So we're actually going to come back, and this is actually a trick I've learned for people that are like, okay, shit, I'm still drawing it too big. Draw it actually with the smaller side. With that said, it'll actually give you a little bit more ingenuity about actually making sure, oh, something isn't oversized or anything. And with that said, you just want to go with the flow of how you're doing stuff. If you really need to, you can make multiple layers of how your headband's going to be, just depending. Make multiple lines, as you guys can see right here. Sorry if it's too dark or light or whatever the case is. With that said, you just want to see what you did here and sometimes this works as well. Go ahead and just cut out what you have already, because that might really help you in this case. Take a pair of scissors as normal that you have lying around, not shear cutters or anything. Oh God, don't do that. And you want to usually see what you've got already. With that said, you can take a mirror or ask a friend for assistance. And you can actually see, if you look at how your stuff is and see where the crown is going, like that looks like it's awesome and everything. But if that's the case, you actually want to then turn it around so that you have no lines actually doing it. And with that said, you'll be able to readjust it to where you're at and everything. And remember, if you're actually putting this on a headband, there's many different techniques. You can do a screw method. When I say screw method, you've got a headband that you've got holes through it, and you've got screws that can go through the headband, through the wig, into a prop or something. And this is my Gansey one that I've redone right now. So there's that. There's a wire method. There's just putting it on a headband and putting it on there. There's even a simple way, since if you're actually using a very thin headband, which I'm going to be doing this for this one, and then I'm going to be doing a hair clip kind of way, you don't want to use too many hair clips. You just want to use two simple ones that'll go on the side of your actual wig, where you can actually put it your hair over, where I'll demonstrate later on with the wig maybe, but you'll be able to layer your hair over it, and on top of that you'll be able to say use a Krylon type of spray, because with that said, you could be using a metal type of actual clip, plastic headband. It is the most simple way to make sure it actually blends in. And I bet you're all going to ask, well, what if I can't find that certain type of actual, color? Don't worry, the headband should actually be underneath the actual thing itself. But if you're wanting to actually do the screw thing, you don't need to worry about how your actual, headband color looks. Just make sure that it's not too dark where it's able to be seen through. You could actually spray paint it with any regular hair, spray can color or any of that other stuff. But let's get back to what we were doing. With this said now, as I said earlier, usually want to have the headband with you when you do this. So if you give me one moment, guys, I'll be right back, because I think my stuff is right over here, maybe? No? I will be right back, guys. It's probably in my room. And I am back, everyone. With this method of, like I was saying earlier, the screw method, where I usually do the Homestuck horns, and you'll see that I actually do the screw method with these headbands. Let me just do this a little bit. Usually will be underneath my wigs and everything. I can do a separate actual tutorial on how to do that if you don't really understand what I'm saying. But when I was talking about thinner headbands, you can go to Dollar General, Dollar Tree, you can almost go anywhere. But I suggest actually getting the thin headbands with these little teeth guards. With the little teeth guards itself, you'll be able to put it in, and it'll actually be able to go over it, or you can actually thin it out coming over, because with that said, these should not move. And that's why I'm using insulation foam, because of how light this stuff is that I use. I actually use different methods, and I'm going to be experimenting with so many other things. But with this said, with a proper headband, that's what you actually want to go off of. With that said, I will show you now, and you usually can get a lot of different colors, usually, but you gotta spray paint it. Awesome. I always suggest a Krylon or like some kind of spray paint that you can use. You usually want to use like a solid color, such as black or white. If you got none of those type of colors, well, it's alright. With that said, you want to take the headband, and usually this is the part I was talking about. You want to take the headband, and with that said, you can actually either A, cut the little triangles out, or B, you actually want to see. Actually, let's go ahead and just do that, because I feel like the other method is just going to be retarded on how I would actually show examples, or stupid. I'm sorry if I say anything offensive. I apologize. Alright, with this said, I mean, it's just a basic little thing. I can do a much better thing than that. But if you have to, you always want to see how something's going to look on a headband. So with that said, and this thing has 5 prongs, as you guys see, that looks like it's nice and all, but in truth, you really want to make sure you're doing this right. So we might make that a little bit smaller, which is okay. And this is the part where I suggest, hey guys, it might actually be smart right now to actually, you know, take a simple like piece off of the part that you already cut. And with that said, what I was going to say is, usually a tape measure is nice to actually have for this. The actual triangles off the crown, the tiara crown, it is a tiara actually. You want to see how far? You want to do a basic one, and this is much easier if you're using a regular tape measure. You want to actually guesstimate on how long it's going to go out, and you want to make sure the tape measure is right on the dot with you. How you can tell, you can use a cutting board or something else, but with this actually said, I'm going to say about maybe a good 4 inches out. We're going to go ahead and mark that on the paper. And how I actually double check for this stuff is I put the paper itself right on the line. If you're not with it, then you need to actually readjust it. As you can see what I mean by putting it right on the tape measure, everyone. You actually want to take your paper, lay it flat right there. As you guys can see, the 4 is right here, my line's right there. Awesome. And now, here comes the fun part. You want to do the same thing, such as what I just did, just going the other way around. I suggest you mark multiple spots if I were you. With me, I usually tend to know where I'm going, and I'm going to go ahead and show you. By doing a 4x4 going out there, the actual thing is going to be extremely long, so we're going to probably shorten that. But for now, let's go ahead and show you exactly. That's what the 4x4 is going to look like, and that's not what you're going to want. So with this said, since that's at 4, and it actually looks pretty good about how far you want it to go out, you want to take your previous triangle and see how that is. With that said, you probably want to go into an inch now. And sorry guys, if this isn't a quick tutorial or anything, this is just something I like to actually do instead. By showing you live is much better by my actual opinion, and you see exactly what I actually have to go through. You want to go right there, and if you guys got to make a double check, switch this around, just make sure everything looks good. Make the double reassure line. With that said right there, you've actually got the triangle forming right now. And you could use like, oh hey, I got a tool that just simply makes me the triangle. I'm like, good for you. What if they don't? You gotta show them easy, quick, or somewhat difficult type of way of, oh, this is how you do it. As you guys can see right there, I actually got the triangle all formed out and stuff, and blah 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 blah. With that said, this is the part where, with that crown of how it looked, it did have a curve. So with that said, since we've actually got them where we need them, you want to take your time, get something that curves or not. It's up to you. But I'm pretty good about actually free-handing all my stuff. And my horns and props have always shown it. But with me being a perfectionist, I'll sometimes actually fold this straight down the half middle point. And with that said, roll that up. We're going to cut this out. Go ahead and just cut up the line going down the middle, because who knows, what if you actually want to cut it all the way from there. And with that said, as you see, I've actually cut one side off. You can simply now take this, just to make sure. This is the tricky part where you know that if you messed up or not. You want to fold it straight down the middle. Make sure everything looks nice. See how you're actually lining up with your lines? That's the awesome part, because you know you're doing it right at that point. Go ahead and cut it. As you guys see, if you have anything wrong, you can use an X-Acto knife or something else to cut everything up very evenly. But go ahead and unfold it. And voila, you got that thing. So with the sides that you actually really liked, out of the two that you make an actual curve into it, I prefer a little bit better on, say, this one a little bit. So we're going to go ahead from the top or either points, and you want to actually go ahead and cut that. On top of that, you want to fold it, and for this part, make sure you're making a line a lot darker for a trace out. That's how you actually get a really nice cutout, is that you fold it, or if it's a much more difficult type of actual cutout, then take your time about making it. Trust me, the most that you can actually do that takes your most valuable time is, in truth, making layouts is the longest part of this. And with this said now, as you guys see this, you want to take your headband and you want to see exactly by how I actually demonstrated earlier. You want to take it and you want to see how far it goes out from just the headband. I know that it's going to be out more, which, you know, it's going to form better. And at this point, you know, oh, okay, maybe that's how I want it, or maybe I don't. But we're going to see how it looks towards the end, you know. And with that said, earlier when I was actually talking about the whole second like circle thing, make another layout, you can actually take this part and see how your crown lines up. If you really must, you could just turn it this way and see how it's going to turn out. And on top of that, if you got to do another curve, guys, sometimes it's actually smart, even though that you did this earlier, if you fold it in half the other way that you're kind of doing this, it's going to be kind of like, well, I can't do that. So how am I supposed to get the same kind of curve like I did with these other ones? That one's actually quite simple. You just make another layout. I know I'm kind of like wasting construction paper by doing this way, but it's probably actually the most fastest way of showing you. Go ahead and trace everything out. I could have just said, hey guys, you could just trace this and then do it like this, that, but in truth, it don't float my boat that way. As you guys can see, that it doesn't actually really officially look like it's going to work. But if you really need to look at both points, line up where your curve's going to be, you can actually take your time about actually readjusting everything. And then you're going to be able to actually do a little bit of adjustment it's going to come out more. You actually want to label like B for bot, or just go ahead and write bot, or T for top right here. That's the top. And then on top of that, you just want to go ahead and like cut this out, because you're going to see this thing actually form. And I always say, guys, make sure you make multiple copies of your actual layouts, your patterns, or whatever you want to call them, your paper thingies that I trace, stencils or something. Go ahead, cut this out, take your time. There's no need to rush unless if you're at the convention and you're actually making it, then you gotta rush. And it's that kind of fun, fantastic kind of thing. As you guys can see now, with the new thing I actually cut out, if you see anything like little bad stuff, it's always better to see how you're gonna cut it in truth and just narrow it right down to the line like that. As you guys can sometimes see that if you mess up, it's a little bit okay if that's the part that's going with it. Wonderful. If not, oh well. Nothing's perfect. With that said now, as you guys can see, I did cut out earlier. It actually does fit pretty well. And with that said, you can actually now take your time and get another piece of actual scrap, construction paper. And this is where you're going to want to take your time, get this lined up, make sure, and this is actually for the base of the crown or tiara. Take your time. You want to actually go ahead and trace this. This is where the actual prototype is going to start happening and making sure that you actually got everything. With that said, that's the actual part right there. You want to take your headband. Note that that's actually not going to probably work. If you must, guys, this is one for sure way of actually doing it, is take the headband itself, and it always helps if you get two people for this, because one could actually be holding it, or you can actually have somebody tape it down for you, and this will actually really help you. So don't pull it out all the way, such as when I say that, you really don't want to have it pushed out all the way. But sometimes you'll note that's actually what you gotta do sometimes. And as soon as you get everything traced, this is the difficult part, guys. You gotta make sure that you don't actually get caught up with everything around it. If you must, go ahead and actually, go around with it. But if this has to be like how it is, that's like an example right there. That doesn't look like too much of, oh my god, that doesn't look like how the headband is going to be and everything. Of course it's not, because it's actually going to be kind of it. So at this point, take your time and see where you were with the headband on your head. And with that said, only get one side of it. Get the max output, and go ahead and try your best about keeping it where it is. Tape sometimes helps, but not really. And with that said, I already know where this is going to go. And that's where it is if it's on my head. And this is the max output right there for the outside. I'm going to label this, and this is the actual, going in to do that, yada, yada, yada. And with that said, I'm going to go ahead and actually cut out the inner part. Come up to it, and I'm just going to go to the outline. And guys, I've never done a pattern for this, so this is all brand new to me too. But I'm actually showing you exactly how I would actually get this stuff going. With that said, you want to bring it to the actual outer line of everything. Make sure the stuff goes right in the middle. And you'll be able to actually trace this all out. Sometimes it's good to use a mannequin head, sometimes it's not. You don't want it to like be, oh my god, this doesn't fit me because, you know, it doesn't want to stretch with me. I'm like, well, that's because it kind of can't. Herp-a-derp. But with it should, this is the example of like if it was on my head. I actually got the headbands thing. And if you guys have to double check everything, take your headband, take it to the outlines, and if it actually makes that shape like how it is right here, you know that you did it right. If something's like that goes over there way too much or something, you gotta get a little bit of adjustment, like so, and you've got this. Now, you want to take the actual part. You can take the part of the actual crown itself and see where it's going, and you know that you're going to add a little bit more, so you can actually legitly set it down, retrace everything, and see how it goes. Or you can see how it actually looks like if you actually have the little curve part that I told you to actually make, which so happens to be right here. You can actually see how this looks, and at this part, this is why I say make sure you have extra construction paper, because in truth, we're going to want to see exactly where this is going to go. So, with that said, we're going to go ahead and just trace it out. And see how it does curve a little bit, guys? That's completely fine. You don't need to worry about that. Because remember, you'll be readjusting everything to the actual spikes. The spikes can even become smaller if you wish them to. And very true. If you guys have any questions, like I said, message me up on Facebook, here on YouTube, or something else. As right now, I'm going to take a little quick 5-second break and see what I've got going on, you know. It's all good. Okay, sweet. Yeah, I figured I wouldn't get too many people on here. I'm just double checking everything, how it looks online. See some pictures as well. And the Utena crown itself actually does get a little bit bigger going up the middle. And I'm just double checking on everything. So with that said, guys, you will need to kind of like make 3 different like triangles. It doesn't need to be, but it's kind of like how royalty does their kind of stuff. So so if you really have to, the best thing for all that is that you can just focus on doing the actual, you know, 1, 2, 3, making this like the big hump show of all like, oh my god kind of stuff. You know what I mean, everyone? It's all like, you gotta make sure your miracles all happen and everything. We're gonna go ahead and slide this. Make sure this is as close to middle as possible. We're gonna go ahead and trace this out for the big tall tip of the crown. If you got the middle of the crown, awesome. And for this part, if you actually really need to, guys, go ahead, check it out, see how your actual other parts are. And with that said, the best way of actually knowing if you're doing it right is legitly take the points and measure them to it, and you'll be able to go from there on out. And if you're trying to make sure this is like going from big, small, medium kind of stuff, you want to sometimes readjust everything to make sure like, oh, this goes more out to this way, I see. You can actually make it where You can legitly, you want to turn the paper right there and trace it all out. You can actually see how it looks. If that looks too small, that's fine. You can actually readjust it for it to come up. And this is where it's going to get weirder because I'm going to do a little bit of difference. That's why I say probably multiple layouts are necessary most of the times. And as you guys can see, you can judge on how it looks compared to like, oh, that should be more this way or this should be more that way. I'm like, okay, well, we can do this and then do that. And for final actual references off of how you want something traced out, it's sometimes nice to actually do one thing, and it would be more towards get a Sharpie and make that your permanent line when you're about to cut everything, you know. And as you guys can see, I've been drawing multiple lines. And with that, I can actually safely say one thing, and that's actually say, hey, I'm actually going to be doing, you know, this to go that way. And we're just making a small little adjustment by going with a small crown towards out here. And we're going to be able to actually check out everything. And with that said, you can look at everything that you've got, like I said. Check it out, see how it is. Doesn't look too to what you want it to be. Just remember, guys, that you always want to double check the pictures for references if you're actually going off of those. I'm actually raise my screen a little bit. With that said, just remember you got to make more of a loop kind of thing. So if it comes to it, you can actually then take your time, make sure they're actually doing everything. Sometimes it's like, you know, you got to make sure everything is proper with what it is. With this, I'm going to go ahead and get my thing actually kind of scored or judged the way I'm going to do it. And I want to make sure like all my stuff just seems to stick out the most. And if I actually have to make sure my things are sticking out the most, I'll tend to always like go up farther with my patterns, see how it actually looks. And let me get back on to, where is my mouse? There we go. We're going to go up farther with this actual thing. And I'm going to go ahead and trace this stuff out again, because I want this thing to actually be able to be where it needs to be. And remember, guys, you can always adjust your actual thing to the commission that you're doing or prop for yourself and see how things are. If your thing isn't really lined up, just see where it needs to be, where it needs to go, and let's see here. We want to go from there to there. We want to make sure everything looks as it's supposed to be. So I was a little off right there. And we're going to do that. And with that said, that looks pretty nice. And we're going to just keep going around. We can make things smaller as they are, or we can make sure they're still like, oh, I need it this big and everything. I'm going with the whole, hey, I got to make sure this thing actually still has its space and everything. And with the actual picture I'm going off of, I got to make sure. Wow. Okay. So pretty much at this point, it's going to be more towards that way. and we're going to come out to being a little bit more about this way. So I'll actually work on one side completely, and I'm going to just make sure everything looks nice and even to where I need it. And we're going to make sure that stays the way it is to where it needs to go. So we can add more to it later on after I get the full thing out. You guys probably say, oh, I could just go online and like do a simple like trace out, draw out, and I'm like, yeah, you could, but I'm actually doing mine all like custom and shit. So no. And with that said, we are going to do, and like I said, you could actually be like, oh, whoops, I should have actually, done that a little bit. And it seems like I'm going to be coming down, and I'm going to be going in more. So, just double checking with everything, guys, to see how your stuff looks. And with that said, it's more of the fact you could have your thing off. You just got to make sure your stuff looks more symmetrical. Let's see here. And I'm going to go ahead and do this and see how it looks. Let's see, I'm going to go from middle point. And I know I have another pen right here, like motherfucker. We're going to go ahead and darken this stuff up. And I'm going to come out doing that, coming out, doing that. And then I'm going to come up, do that, and then we're going to come over, see how that looks. And then I'm going to go ahead and see how I want this to come down. And with that said, the stuff's going to be able to come down this way. And I'm going to take my actual layout that I got. See how that looks. Go with this. Be a little bit like, yeah, that's how his rules and everything. You're not moving on me, buddy. And then with that said, you just want to look at everything that you got. Says to that, you want to actually then just take your time, cut everything out, see how it looks. If you gotta actually readjust things, wonderful. And with that actually said now, you truly just only want to actually make sure your lines up. See how everything looks. Make sure everything is folded down. Make sure you're actually lining up everything. Remember, guys, construction paper may be wonderful, but sometimes you gotta remember that you can actually accidentally set things off the wrong way. You want to make sure everything gets up to where it needs to be. Trace everything out. Awesome. With that said about how I've got it looking, I want to take this, cut it out, and then you've got the actual thing. You want to take your time. Make sure you're cutting out the part where you have the headband, because you want this to actually be exact with what you drew. Make sure everything's actually being cut right. Take your time. I'm not in a rush. Kinda am, but I don't know about you guys. Alright, that said, there's the actual thing. You want to take this. You want to see how it actually looks on you before you do your actual stuff. With that said, I'm just double checking if you actually got it where you need it, how it looks. Make sure everything looks right, as you guys can see. Remember, this is kind of going to go backwards, so if you have to, go ahead and adjust it. If anything, if you really got to, guys, and it's actually touching, you know, the hair, go ahead and adjust it towards the actual project. With the actual tiara, you want to actually just make sure it's just cut out, because in truth, you're probably going to do a little bit of about, I want to say, what, about a little bit of a 1/4 of an inch cut from each of the insides, because in truth, you're probably going to actually adjust it where it goes out more. But with this said, you're actually going to be going inwards. And I think this is why people actually suggest that kind of stuff. And if you guys are wondering about the actual hairpins I was talking about, you can do clips or anything. But with this, you get a simple actual hair clip that you just bobby pin into the hair. And with that said, with like these type of headbands, if I can actually find them, there we go. You can actually adjust this where it can actually go right onto it. And you can simply, like, you know, get it all adjusted that you need to or not. And with that said, you could either just hot glue them right to them. But as you guys can see, since this is going to be kind of a wig, and you'll be able to actually kind of do double, you'll be able to actually use maybe the hairpins, but we're going to actually try 2 different things. With this set now, take your actual design. You want to take it over to your installation foam. This is the part that you want to trace it out and cut it out. Alright? And as you all know, what I actually tend to do, even though I may have this stuff all drawn out, I always sign my stuff. and I label what it is as well. The reason why I sign it is because somebody tried to steal this. I mean, they could trace it out and everything, but no, this is like, you're stupid and I actually catch you doing it, your ass is mine, pretty much. Tiara. You got the tiara. It could be more edited for some other stuff, like, oh, hey, I could actually readjust it going out more like, this, and yada, yada, yada. But with this one, guys, it is presumably smart to actually take at least some type of tape, masking tape, or any type of tape. I say masking tape, painter's paint is the same thing. Take little pieces of it, such as this. You actually want to fold it, so it kind of rolls up with each other. Put it on the actual design of the bad side that you don't like, onto the actual design, as I'm doing right now. You want to put it just on the main points of the actual thing. You don't want to put it all over, being all fancy and shit. Hell no, you don't want to do that. And when we get to the actual cutting, I suggest usually using a wood saw, because the stuff will go right through it with no problem. And there's that. Take your time about putting this on the actual insulation foam. Voila. Got 5 points on it. You want to try and make sure, guys, whatever side you're using, you can sometimes say, hey, I'm just going to use this for that entire part. You want to take your time, get everything on there, make sure it's adjusted. Voila, you've got it on there. Take a marker, Sharpie, any of that kind of stuff. I suggest you guys actually use a Sharpie. The reason why I say that, it stands out more. Pen is nice, but you want something really like soft, not all that hard to actually trace with. And I swear, I have my, oh, there's my Sharpie and my copy. You want to take your Sharpie at this point. You want to actually go ahead, take your time, pull it down, especially any chipped areas of your layouts. Make sure you hold it down, because you're most likely going to go over your design itself, which is alright. Just remember, if you need to make multiple ones, go ahead. Go ahead, take your time. I say if you're watching this another time, guys, and you're watching this tutorial, I will actually tell you like certain parts. Hey, go ahead and skip this part or that part. YouTube can actually let me edit videos where I can actually do speed lap videos. Awesome. Take time, hit the folded areas the most. On top of that, the reason why I use a wood cutter more than a wood saw more than a styro cutter is because sometimes people aren't patient enough to actually going through it all. And if you're wondering about the thickness of my actual insulation foam, it is about it's 2 inches thick. I'll be getting a higher class, the only class grade higher in my insulation foam that I can actually purchase or is available. I will be most likely going to that one here for all of my future projects, because this is the second high class and usually the only time I can actually afford with anything I've got after doing certain builds and all that fun stuff. But the reason why I'm going to go up, it'll even be a harder material than what I've got right now, guys. Like, it'll just be so much denser, but that's where it's like, it's going to be harder to more or less try and cut through it all. We're going to go ahead, trace in the middle. If you got good enough pieces to actually do other little props with, by all means, go ahead, I say, and do them with those little pieces. Like, if I'm going to cut this middle piece out, you know that's actually going to be part of, like, well, hey, shit out of luck, I've got extra pieces right here. Now, for this part, guys, I want you to be very cautious about this. Make sure you have like a hand towel or rag towel or whatever towel, so when you actually get done going through this, you can just wipe off the actual residue from it. So for this part, I'm just going to say take your time and just go into it in truth and just go down the entire thing. It's been a while since I've used this, so I don't know how well it's going to be. Like I said, a saw would be a lot better in doing this kind of stuff, guys, because with this set, this is going to take me a lot longer to do. But sometimes if you actually go back and forth with it, like if you're acting like you're cutting it, it tends to go, you know, through it a lot faster. The reason why I say that, well, you're actually kind of cutting it. So if you guys are watching this, like I said, with the video, go ahead and like skip right through it. I don't really need to worry about detail right now. As you guys can see, oh my, this is going to be fun. This is totally where I wish it was the last part. I think YouTube can actually let you do that. Edit your videos so they go faster. Make them sound like a chipmunk. Don't push too hard because you can actually break these. That's why I say kind of balance it out. As you guys can hear, it's starting to break, wanting to come loose. Take your time, trust me, don't rush it. You'll get there like I am. Some way, somehow, over the rainbow. Don't rush it at this point either, even if you're at the very, 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 very tip end. You just want to cut through it all normalized. With that said, like I said, guys, what you guys do, kind of issue. Kind of want to take the towel, but as soon as you get your piece cut out, there you go. Take a wet cloth or something else. make sure you're actually just like getting this stuff like off. It's usually best to always get it off while it's still hot. So I'm gonna have to actually let that heat back up by itself, so that way I can take some kind of fabric cloth and just wipe it completely off. With this part now, as you guys can see, you've got your actual piece about cut out itself. You really have to, everyone. Take your time. And for me to actually file this stuff down, I'm going to use a wood filer. I'll show you in specific which one I'm going to use. But for now, you want to take your actual layout slowly. Take all pieces off of the actual masking tape. Take her off slowly. Take your time, trust me. You don't want to just go rip it off, because in truth you can do two different type of things. One, you actually rip this. Two, you actually can pull this up if you're actually way too fast about ripping it. I'm not showing you. I say fuck that. And right now I've actually got a tiara layout. With this, as you guys kind of see, you're just like, well, how's that going to move and everything? In truth, what you can actually do, insulation foam kind of has some movability and everything, but if you actually got to move it or adjust it, like I said, you can actually file this stuff down where you can actually carve in more for just the sake of the headband. The headband for this, it's nice and all, you know, like the headband, you don't want this moving actually. So we're going to do a little, you know, like carving into the actual crown itself. And remember, this crown is actually kind of thin, but I'm making sure this tiara looks professionally good enough thickness, not too thin where it's just like, well, fuck that, I would have just cut it in half and everything. You gotta remember that this thing kind of goes in backwards. So you gotta use a reference how your actual thing is kind of bent. You just want to do a little bit like that. You can just do a little bit bends to the actual layout, making sure, oh, hey, that's how I should do it, and all that fun stuff. Now, we're going to take our time. I want to say, guys, let me, first off, make this so much faster. I'm actually going to go get my wood saw. I'm going to go out on the deck and, like, cut this. So, I will be right back. I've got a trusty little, like, pocket knife that I have that I got from the store, guys. With everything said, it's raining and everything, just do that for God and something. You don't want to, like, make a huge mess or anything like that. As you guys can see though, with what I've actually done, I've cut out parts of this, and you don't need to be real detailed about how you actually cut this. You can actually wait and do the actual filing, where you can just, chisel in the inside and all that fun stuff. And if you still just want to stick with the actual, spiral cutter, and make sure, like I said, when this stuff is hot, it's best to actually get it off. You can use a hard surface. This stuff won't go through wood, guys. It's a spiral cutter for a reason. It won't go through Eva foam unless it's like really thin. Then, yeah, I'm using my shirt, and it'll leave this little like residue snot stuff on an actual shirt. So be cautious about what you want to actually use it for. So, if I really have to, everyone, I can bring you with me, which I most likely am going to do, regardless of what I say. So, we're going to take the laptop. And since I'm not going to really be texting any of you, or typing to you, while I'm doing this a little bit, in truth, we're going to bring this over here, and we're going to show you kind of tall drawing right here. Hopefully I have you guys see me and how I actually do this stuff. I'm going to go ahead and plug my charger back into the wall so my laptop doesn't die like, ooh, hey, live stream, we're just going to drain your juice. Woo! Right. What them bugs. Knives and all that stuff. Nope, guys, what I'm actually going to do is going to go in real quick. I would really rather be using a saw in truth. I'm going to shut this door. Over the actual balcony is where it's best to actually do it. Make sure you're cleaning up the mess. But pretty much what I'm doing is I really am just going in, doing little small insertions. Make sure that you're not going in at like an angle into this, because you can totally be like, well, fuck, I just cut my design itself. This stuff can also be repaired real easy as to actually with hot glue, which is what you can use pretty much for this. But yes, pretty much you're going to actually go in. You really don't need to worry too much about like, oh, hey, pull it if you can't get it to go through at first. And go in at multiple angles. Dig out what you don't need, like that. Keep cutting. Voila, there's that piece. And then you want to actually just go ahead and drag. Usually when I'm using my wood saw, I don't need to worry about actually doing all this little explanation. Oh, I have to do this or that. No, you don't need to do that. Be very cautious about cutting, because you can actually tear your fucking skin up. Sorry for the language, but I'm actually telling certain idiots that do this kind of shit that, hey, watch yourself. You're going to cut yourself. I've seen it. It's sad enough to actually see. You can use your finger actually from just simply like cutting this without like gloves, like how I'm kind of doing. But with me, I know what I'm doing. I can still cut myself by accident completely. So we're going to go ahead and just disregard any little pieces. If any little pieces can't even make a little piece of a prop, disregard it. Just get rid of it. We're just trying to get the rest of this formed. Take your time. You don't want to bust a certain area like in half. Even if you can repair it, you never want to bust a piece off. Like, you could easily break this off by holding it too hard. With this said, I'm just making sure I'm actually going in. can actually get pretty close with this stuff, guys. You want to cut in right about there, for that last piece. And then, let's see, anything else detail-wise? I'll probably just use the wood filer. And voila. Make sure, guys, I do warn people that do this stuff while the rain is going or something else as to, like, hey, this stuff can actually melt in water after, like, being exposed and being cut every day. We're going to put that right there. We're going to take this stuff. I actually suggest strongly get a sack or something, a garbage bag that you use for, like, the actual inside stuff. Store it in that little sack just in case. That way you're not making such a big ass mess. So like a little grocery bag and everything, everyone. Go ahead and shut the door up. Lock it up. Turn off the light if you're not using it. I'm going to bring the laptop back over here. And now, I'm going to set you back all down right here. Plug you all back in. And for this part, I'm going to show you exactly what it looks like. No fret, no worry. As I said, you can actually just use a wood filer to go in. And if it actually comes to where, oh, hey, I wish it was thinner. They do sell the stuff in thinner stuff, but in truth, you can use a saw and just go through it. And if you're wondering, oh, wait a second, it doesn't go all the way through. That's the thing. Just go around it, like in a circle, until you can just, like, pull it apart. But if it's that too far apart, well, simple. Get some thinner stuff if you have to, but you really don't need to. Saws are long enough to get that far. And since I actually did say that I'm trying to not cause as much as of a mess, I should be using the styro cutter, but with me, I like to get my stuff done. And if you're actually that close to this stuff, well, shit, I'm going to get my filer. So, I'll be right back. In truth, I probably won't be that long. I'm just double checking everything. And the filer, guys, that I'm going to be using, simple. It's usually found as a double thing. You can use bigger ones, but this is more, you know, handheld, double-ended, double-sided. Ones for more like do the final finishes, or like, you know, ones that actually really get that stuff done. So, with that also said, I have to do this, you know, like in something that's gonna, you know, get this stuff like not as big of a mess. Sorry if I'm not explaining that well sometimes. So, I'm going to have to actually bring you all back over here. So it was kind of silly actually bringing my laptop. And I actually knew I was going to do this. I thought about using the styro cutter, but in truth, no. We're going to actually show you guys exactly what I do when I file this. Okay, sparks, awesome. We're going to bring the actual project back outside. If you guys got a mess of this stuff inside, best advice, use a broom or a vacuum. Do not use a vacuum that contains like a bag or something in it, you know? So we're going to go ahead, bring this back out, stay in the same area you are. In truth, use a tarp if you have to. And make sure, if you're doing this at night, you gotta have the light on. Have the screen door shut so like bugs don't come in.
But what you're going to do, simple. Take your time. Go sideways if you can with the front, because you want to actually make sure everything is curved, filed down to the actual key point of your actual design. You can do long ways going on it. You just got to make sure that this stuff is as close to the line as possible. Take your time, take your time. No need to rush. Better to have it done right. And when you usually get to the actual outlines of it, you want to make sure you actually barely file in that stuff so it's still on the line when you buy it. Just make sure you're doing everything correctly. Make sure the whole thing gets filed down correctly and all that fun stuff. I can go a lot faster usually on this kind of stuff, guys, but since I'm doing a tutorial and I'm doing this at night, I don't want to like go poop. I don't know. It's just something about tonight. I don't want to like speed through this. It could just be the sake of you guys watching me doing this as a tutorial. But if I were really doing this at top speed, you'd shit bricks and actually drop jaws. Let's put it that way. And once it gets down to the sanding process, everybody, you can use sandpaper or sand sponge. Usually, most likely, I like using sand sponges now. Reason, you can keep reusing them, then using the sandpaper over and over. But you can go get sandpaper anywhere. It's just more wiser to actually use sandpaper itself towards the final finish for stuff I'm going to be using to cover this. And I use different methods almost for anything, for different situations, depending on what the actual situation is. I could be using a liquid for this cover, or I could be using like some kind of like spackle or something. Get that set, that's in correctly. Alright, there's that. Make sure you brush this stuff off of you guys before going inside of the house. That's all I'm going to say. Alright. There's that. Alright, there's that too. I think, in truth, the only people that ever actually really saw me at top speed making something were whoever witnessed me at Asen making the staff. And that staff is being improved as we speak, actually. Ah, there we go. Oh yeah, guys, I advise you, don't do this in a closed space, because I don't want you breathing this shit in. Technically, I don't want to say it's fully toxic, but you shouldn't be breathing an insulation foam of any type, because I believe that is toxic. So I take back what I say. Do this on the outside. You do this inside, make sure it's well ventilated inside of the actual place. Alright, there's that. There's that. Hands inside, looks good. Don't want to be dropping stuff. Just a little bit more on the inside. Make sure everything's all curved up right. I think it's about to rain again on me. So I'm not going to actually stay up here much longer. It does that. And I'll just like stand at the door with it open and like, nope, still curving regardless. Or I'll just styrofoam cut the stuff to be easier. There we go. Huh. Almost got it all, guys. It's just that little stuff that always bothers me. It's called detail. Oh man, if I use that saw though, guys, I can actually get this stuff done a lot faster than how long you're seeing on this video. In truth, if it was me using a wood saw, I would have this stuff already like carved out completely. So I'm showing you right now, regardless on how long like carving can take you sometimes, just depending on the situation that you actually do. Okay, looks good. Just gotta shave this off a little bit. And then I actually gotta make sure this looks good. Alright. That's the moon being out. It's been raining like every night. I need rain. Let's see here. So if you guys have any projects you want to see me do, I mean, I'm willing to do like stuff like just show video tutorials. Let me know. I'll see what I can do. Hit them up in the comments section too. I mean, you can technically message me on YouTube, but I wonder if you know how. It's quite easy. It's just going to the inbox. Let's see. That looks good so far. Oh, so close. Almost. Making sure it looks good. I want to make sure it looks good. So close. So close. Come on. You can do it, awesome. Come on. Watch, it'll probably rain as soon as I got this all done. Okay. That now actually said, guys, like I said, make sure before you enter the house, clean off yourself. As you guys can see, if you got a little piece like that sticking out, it's all good. You guys got the whole thing carved out. At that point, with this said, just make sure that you're actually cleaning up, even if it's a little bit of the stuff. In the sake,
Well, maybe I'm gonna go back outside and, like, you know, carve it down some more. And truth, you can just at least keep it all in one spot. Wonderful. Huh. That's interesting. Alright. Now that I've actually got that all swept up, everyone, lock up, make sure to turn the light off. And truth, I'm just going to go ahead and shut my blinds, even though this is not a tutorial step. It's just because it's late. Hopefully, I'm not actually keeping people up, in truth. Once you've actually now got that kind of stuff out of the way, everyone, I've got a mess up here in truth that I'll eventually have to pick up. So, with all that actually said now, this is the part that you actually want to go back. I know the tiara is over there right now, but as you guys noticed, that if you take a better look, oh, perp a derp. My laptop is like really crappy, guys. I mean, I love it for the fact of when I got it, but so much stuff happened. So this is actually when you want to take the actual headband itself. Take it. You want to see about how it fits inside. In truth, you really want this to like legitly go over your head. So if you can't even get this over your head without a struggle, that means you've got to make drastic kind of like adjustments. Even if it's going on the headband or even a thicker headband, such as voila, it still suggests majorly like readjusting everything that you're doing. So right now, I want to actually take this note, whatever you guys are like officially not using, set it over to the side, take whatever you guys have to pick up. I'm just making sure everything looks kind of cleaned up here right now. And I don't want to be yelled at for like a mess and stuff. So right now, everyone, take your time, start cleaning up. Just a little bit. I mean, it's common sense. And I will introduce to you all a simple few things that you can use by making sure you got like primers and stuff for this kind of project or projects. I will show you what I use. Let's see, that's the final finish. That is fast and final. Awesome. I'll show you the other shit or other stuff that you guys have to do. Oh, there it is. Since this is the spackle I use, and I'll also show you the actual other primer, I have to actually go through certain containers. And I really wish I could get a bigger jugs of them. But I might have to do a two-part tutorial over this. It's more of the final finish. So for this part of the actual tutorial is that, remember, insulation foam is wonderful, but remember, it can actually have a breaking point sometimes when you're pulling it way too hard, and it's like, no mommy, don't put that shit on it, no mommy. And sometimes it's smarter when you do the insulation foam for that reason. Sometimes they're saying, go ahead and use EVA foam and all that fun stuff. But insulation foam is a great great actual base coat, base whatever you're using. It can be used for props or any of that kind of fun stuff. With like tiaras and any of this other kind of stuff, sometimes it is more worthy to like use like other things to actually do it. But for what I'm actually going to show you now is what you actually use, and you can use a simple, let's see, to sand this down, you can go out and buy a low-class sandpaper, sand sponge, or high-class. It's just, you usually want to get what your money is for. I suggest you use a sand sponge when you're first sanding any of this stuff down, but use the filer to get what you need down to what it needs to be. Get it carved down first. After that, you can do whatever really to it, but stuff that you'll need for like finish polish everything, you'll need a hot glue gun, hot glue sticks. I've got mine over there. It can just be plain hot glue, nothing super fancy or any of that kind of stuff. Sandpaper, you could go to Dollar Tree and get that stuff that they have. I usually get the sandpaper that's the black sheets, which I will show you right now. The reason why I suggest for all of you to use the sandpaper, even if you're not going to use a sand sponge, in truth, is wonderful just to get it completely sanded down. All the, like, let's get this down. But if you're going to go into actual detail about getting little cracks, small cracks, you can use a little filer too. I'm talking about an actual filer for like wood and everything. You want to use wet or dry sandpaper, which is like this black stuff. The reason why you want to use that stuff, you can just use it by hand, you don't need to hook anything up, is because when you actually get the spackle, primer, or gesso, which the only two spackles that you should ever use, or any class of spackle, unless you're really trying to make it heavy, you want to use lightweight, like an actual lightweight substance spackle. I can use Fast and Final lightweight spackle, or a patch and paint lightweight spackle. The patch and prime in one step. It's pretty much like, hey, use this to actually use as a primer. This one is pretty much to get it to where it is. And pretty much I've been told you can also just use the spackle itself, and that's why you want to sand the stuff really down good. You want to use spackle pretty much, or any type of filler, to do the major, like, I need to fill this up. You don't want to use it completely over it, but I usually do, and you want to use multiple layers regardless. But you can also use a gesso, and it's spelled that way, which is a canvas primer. And if you use a canvas primer, I'm warning you right now, make sure you let the stuff completely dry first. And how I usually let the stuff extremely dry, like, well, over my corner of the living room over there, as you guys can see, right here, there's a little, spot right there where I've got a project that's probably way beyond dry. It's dry, which is Luigi Poltergust 5000 I'm making for Rockin' Hammer 18, which is my younger sister. I usually put stuff in front of the fan, especially if you're on a deadline, like, oh my god, this stuff has to be done like by tomorrow or today. You want to put it in front of the fan itself, because like 10 minutes, as long as it's like, you want to do like really light. And this is the stuff, how it looks. It comes in white. It pretty much is, when you first use it, you don't just go put it on the project. You actually want to mix it up with a little bit of water. You can put it over underneath the water,
but you want to like drain it as much as possible from it. Just like let it drain. Stuff won't just come right out of the container, so it's all good. That same thing with that stuff, but gesso, it's like a paint substance. You don't need to add water sometimes, unless it's like, oh, I'm mixing this up and stuff. You can most likely pretty much, let me think here. I'm just seeing if you can actually kind of like, use this and mix it, but it's kind of stupid to kind of mix this in truth when that's kind of stupid when I start thinking about it. But you want to make sure if you're using the gesso, read the instructions. You want to actually shake it, stir it up, brush it, all that stuff. You just want to pretty much make sure that you're doing light layers at first with the actual primer, such as I've actually put at least a good, maybe 2, maybe 3, but one of them was really light. And when it comes to the bottom of stuff like my horns, in truth, if you see purple or any color of the insulation film, and then you're going to put paint or anything on it besides what I just told you, this stuff right here will not eat the foam whatsoever, unless if you're doing something really weird, like you added too much water, you're just globbing that stuff on without it being sanded down first. You really don't need to sand stuff down if it's the spackle method, but that's my preferred choice. You want to, sand the stuff down first before putting anything on, and then afterwards, let it dry, let it set. I usually say let it set out in the sun, let it naturally dry, but if you got the fan in the sun, that's even better. You want a breeze to keep it constantly cold. You can usually just set it like do one side first. So if I were not putting holes in this and just letting it set somewhere, I would let one side set, then switch it over, do that side, get it where it needs to be. So pretty much for the rest of this tutorial, what I just told you is do what you need to use. After it's set, the spackle gesso, we'll do the spackle thing first. You want to see how well it is. If it's really clumped up on there, sand it down, but in truth, just do another really light layer of it, even it out, make sure it's all even, because you really don't need to sand the stuff down. You can use a sand sponge or sandpaper like I just told you to wet or dry. Just remember, certain sand sponges are meant for certain things, but you can use rough, but if you do rough, you gotta gently do it. Just don't go no. The sand sponges will take it out faster. These will do a lot better job. You'll have a lot smoother stuff. But when you do the gesso, remember guys, it's a primer, so you technically need to put a white paint over it, because if you actually just go straight with your actual colored paints, it's going to come out blotchy and shitty. But this might be an example for it, but gesso, you can even go over stuff you've already painted, which is a nice, cover up. My girlfriend painted these for me, but this gesso can actually do this kind of stuff. The paint will look like that. And no, my girlfriend paints wonderful stuff. It's just that gesso itself can actually, make your paint job look like a sponge bath crap job, to be honest. So, other than that, pretty much that covers what you exactly need to really do. Just make sure when you're using gesso, use a white color paint, and I use acrylics. And if you need to seal this stuff up, you can use paint, clear coat or anything. Spray paint, I suggest you just stay away from that with insulation foam. In almighty truth, I strongly suggest that. But there's sometimes where you're able to do it. It's just that spray paint is a more hardcore, I'm coming on you with a lot of heavy duty paint. That stuff will eat right at the actual, insulation foam. But when it comes to EVA foam, I say put a primer on, but do what kind of color you need to do. It's quite fine. You can use acrylics. And acrylics, if you're wondering about belts too, I know this is off topic. you can use acrylic paints. That helped me with my, though I had to paint and all that other fun stuff. So with this, I'll probably upload pictures to actual, my Facebook. You can follow me up on Cosplaying with Saw the Aura. Or look me up as Austin Thompson. Saw the Hedgehog here on YouTube, DeviantArt. Tumblr is Saw the Aura Hog. But yeah, I guess the explanation of finishing this up was just telling you exactly what you need to do, because it's like 3:31 in the morning here, and with what I need to really do, it's more the fact, I gotta do this, but if I must, I can actually keep, showing you guys what I'm doing. But let me think here. If I do that, it's more of the fact I gotta pretty much, cut into this, and that's about it. And if I do that, I gotta do it really nice, but make sure nothing looks bad. I gotta do it all even. And if you're doing adjustments, do it to both at the same time with your project. It'll be like, oh my god, you did not just do that, and all this fun bullshit. So with this, I guess if I'm gonna be doing this with carving, it'll be more or less like, okay, I'm gonna start here. I'm going to thin out the back, but I'm going to be thinning out the front by doing it. So it's going to be like, I'm going to be carving this, but hollowing out this part. So it's actually fanning back. And with that said, you'll actually be taking, the actual headband itself to whatever one that you're doing. And if you're actually trying to use this, I strongly suggest, guys, take your time when you're actually doing it. Because in truth, you want to actually, hot glue this. And if you're actually trying to use some kind of, like holy thing, I suggest straws, like a regular straw, if you're trying to put something through it. But with this, you want to use hot glue. But when you get towards the point of putting it on here, take a little filer, guys, little filer, and take your time and carve into your actual product. That way the headband can go in. But if this actual method doesn't work for you, go with the screw method, put the headband underneath the actual, wig, put the screws through the wig, all that fun stuff. The stuff stays secure. This stuff is, you want teeth guards for this. And if it requires 2 headbands, then use 2 headbands. You want to make sure this stuff actually comes out and everything comes out with it. So with this, like if you're putting this on your head, you really need to actually carve in a little bit more. And if I have to do more for this, okay, that's fine. I don't mind doing that. It's more of the fact you gotta make sure the stuff it's a solid piece. That's all there is to it. So other than that, guys, I guess Saw the Hedgehog's gonna sign out, and I'm gonna go ahead and do an update video right after this about the sword and horns. So other than that, stay tuned for my next videos. Hope you guys enjoyed this really long video tutorial of how to do this. So other than that, guys, Saw the Hedgehogs and out. Peace.